There are people who carry the weight of the world in silence. They smile through exhaustion, nod through pain, and dismiss their struggles as if they were nothing more than passing clouds. They are the ones who always offer help but never receive it, not because no one cares, but because they never ask. To the outside world, they seem strong, independent, even admirable. But beneath that armor of self-reliance lies a quiet loneliness, a belief so deeply rooted it becomes invisible, that needing help is a burden, that vulnerability is weakness, that asking is proof of failure. This is not strength. This is survival shaped by old wounds, carried forward into a life that no longer requires it. They have perfected the art of appearing fine. When someone asks how they're doing, the answer is automatic. I'm good, I'm fine, everything's okay. Even when the truth is far from it. Even when they are drowning in exhaustion, overwhelmed by responsibility, crumbling under pressure they never asked to carry. The words come out smooth, rehearsed, as if they've been saying them their whole life. And perhaps they have. These are the people who never ask for help, not because they don't need it, but because something inside them has long decided that asking is not an option, that needing someone is a sign of failure, that reaching out is the same as admitting defeat. They are the reliable ones, the ones everyone turns to when things fall apart, the friend who listens for hours, the colleague who stays late, the family member who holds everything together. They give endlessly, and they do it with grace. But when the roles reverse, when they are the ones who need support, they retreat. They minimize, they deflect, they say, it's nothing, even when it feels like everything. To the outside world, this looks like strength, independence, resilience. But inside, it feels different. It feels like carrying a weight no one else can see. It feels like standing in a crowded room and still being utterly alone, because asking for help has never felt safe. Somewhere along the way, they learned that needing others was risky, that vulnerability was a door better left closed. Maybe they asked once and were met with indifference. Maybe they reached out and were told to figure it out themselves. Maybe the people who were supposed to care were too consumed by their own struggles to notice theirs. Or maybe no one ever taught them that needing help was allowed, that it didn't make them weak, or burdensome, or less than that, so they stopped asking. And over time, that choice became a reflex. Independence became their identity. Self-reliance became their language. And the idea of leaning on someone else began to feel foreign, even dangerous. But there is a cost to this. The cost is the exhaustion that never fully lifts, the loneliness that hums quietly beneath the surface, the feeling of being trapped inside their own competence, of being so good at handling everything alone that people assume they don't need anything at all. And in some strange, painful way, they begin to believe it too. They begin to wear their independence like armor, forgetting that armor was never meant to be worn forever. They tell themselves they are protecting others, that by not asking, they are keeping people from the burden of their needs. But what they don't realize is that they are also protecting themselves from rejection, from disappointment, from the vulnerability of being seen in their struggle. Because if no one knows they're falling apart, then no one can fail them. And if no one fails them, then maybe it won't hurt as much. But it does hurt quietly, constantly, in the moments when they lie awake at night, replaying the day, wishing someone had noticed. In the times they watch others receive support so easily and wonder why it feels impossible for them. In the ache of wanting to be cared for but not knowing how to let it happen, because asking for help isn't just about saying the words, it's about believing you deserve to be helped. It's about trusting that your needs matter, that your struggle is valid, that someone will show up without resentment or judgment. And for people who learned early on that those things couldn't be counted on, asking feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, exposed, uncertain, terrifying. So they don't ask. They endure, they carry, they cope. And the world keeps seeing them as strong, never knowing that strength has become their loneliest burden. No one is born believing they must carry everything alone. This is learned, slowly, quietly, in moments, so small they barely register at the time. But together, they form the foundation of a belief system that lasts a lifetime. The child who asks for comfort and is told to toughen up, the teenager who reaches out and is met with dismissal, the young adult who expresses a need and is made to feel like a burden. These moments don't announce themselves as trauma. They don't arrive with warning signs, but they settle into the nervous system like sediment, layer by layer, until asking for help begins to feel like something dangerous. That the brain is brilliant at adapting to its environment, and when that environment teaches that vulnerability leads to pain, the brain learns to protect itself. It builds walls. It creates distance. It decides that independence is safer than connection, that silence is safer than speaking, that suffering alone is safer than risking disappointment. For many, The origin of this pattern lies in childhood. Perhaps there were parents who were physically present, but emotionally unavailable, people who provided food and shelter but not warmth, not reassurance, not the kind of attunement that makes a child feel truly seen. Or perhaps there was instability, chaos, neglect, addiction, mental illness, and the child learned early that they couldn't rely on the adults around them, that they had to become their own caretaker, that asking for help only led to frustration, or worse, nothing at all. Some grew up in families where independence was praised above all else, where needing others was subtly shamed, where emotions were treated as inconveniences, and struggles were expected to be handled quietly, without fuss. In those homes, self-reliance wasn't just encouraged, was survival, and the child learned that being easy, being undemanding, being fine, was the only way to be loved. Others experienced something more specific, a moment when they asked for help and were met with anger, or mockery, or cold indifference, a moment that taught them, asking is not safe. And once that lesson is learned, it doesn't need to be repeated. The brain remembers. It remembers that reaching out led to pain, and so it stops reaching. Psychologically, this is called avoidant attachment. It develops when a child learns that their emotional needs will not be met consistently, and so they adapt by minimizing those needs. They become self-sufficient not because they want to be, but because they have to be. And over time, this adaptation becomes automatic. It becomes who they are. But here is the paradox. The very mechanism that once protected them now isolates them. What began as a survival strategy in childhood becomes a prison in adulthood. Because while it may have been true once that asking for help was dangerous, that is no longer the case. The world has changed, the people around them have changed, but the belief hasn't. The nervous system still carries the old message, don't ask, don't need, don't risk it, and so they continue to carry everything alone, even when they no longer have to. Neuroscience shows us that early relational trauma literally rewires the brain. The parts responsible for trust, connection, and emotional regulation, the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the ventral vagal system, are all shaped by early experience. When those experiences are marked by emotional neglect or inconsistency, the brain learns to stay in a state of hypervigilance. It learns that connection is unpredictable, that vulnerability is a threat, and that the safest option is to depend on no one. This is not a conscious choice. It is a physiological adaptation, and it is extraordinarily hard to undo. Because even when someone intellectually knows that asking for help is okay, their body doesn't believe it. Their nervous system still sends signals of danger when they try. Their chest tightens, their throat closes, the words get stuck, and so they retreat, again, into the familiar pattern of silence. But there is something important to understand here. This pattern is not a flaw, it is not weakness, it is not stubbornness or pride, though it may look like those things from the outside. It is an intelligent response to an environment that once failed to hold them. It is the brain doing exactly what it was designed to protect. The tragedy is that in protecting them from past pain, it also protects them from present connection, from the possibility of being helped, from the relief of not having to carry everything alone. And so they remain stuck, not because they don't want things to change, but because change requires something they were never taught to do. Trust that someone will catch them if they fall. Healing doesn't begin with asking for help. It begins with understanding why asking became so hard. It begins with recognizing that the armor they built was necessary once, but it no longer serves them. That the walls that kept them safe also keep them alone. And that maybe, just maybe, it's time to let someone in, not all at once, not with everyone, but slowly, carefully, with people who have earned the right to be trusted. Because asking for help is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are healing, that you are ready to stop surviving and start living, that you are learning, finally, that needing others is not a weakness, it is what makes us human.